Hello and welcome back to Kerbal Space Program. It's been a little bit of a while since we made the Karborundum quest video. I've been, well, working and studying, finishing all that jazz. So I just thought I'd give you a little update on the tech tree here. This is where we are at the moment. I'm just going to unlock these HX parts so that we have some big things for a few little plans that I've got. Pretty much inspired by Mass Effect Andromeda. I'm so sort of stuck on that. So what we're doing is basically a bit of station keeping. As said before in a previous video, I've lost or damaged my landers for Minmus, so I'm just sending this ship out here. I think this is the one I called the Odyssey, and I'm sending this out to replenish the two landers and then just bringing it straight back. This was basically my test ship to have a look at how DSEV mod worked. Angel, if you watch this, you've done a brilliant job. I really like this mod. And these engines are great. I just wish they had tweak scale now. Just something I've sort of done after playing through today. But yeah, so just sending it out, returning it back to orbit. And then I decided that finally I needed to put a base on Minmus. Now, I still need a bit of studying, and I haven't got to the point where I need a fuel base up here yet. So I thought, why not make it a rover, just a bit of a decent sized rover that can run about. I can move the crew in and out of. It's fairly easy with the landers I've got. And playing about, this landing system came off of something that was on Kerbal X that I used a while back. And I think it's absolutely hysterical. I'm sorry, I don't know whose it is, but it's genius. So this is how I land some of my rovers. It is not efficient, but it looks good to me. So here's my first basic rover. A lot of the USI is the Caribou rover, the Caribou mod, with some of the MKS mod on there. And I don't know where that science arm comes from, but it is brilliant. I just had to show it off. Quite an interesting way of getting science. So this rover's just, the entire point of it is to collect science, and as you see here, send it up to the space station to process. And obviously, speeding on Minmus, this happens. So my entire rover's pretty much wasted. I lost all of my science experiments that I had there. Or not the experiments, but the actual equipment. So I thought I'd take this down and get it off the hill to stop any accidental problems. And then send down my heavy lander, because there's a few crew in here. So I thought I'd send the heavy lander down to do a bit of rescue once I start driving properly. So here's the heavy lander. This is the first outing for it. Now this thing was built specifically to return somebody from Juna to orbit. It can take 4 or 5 people from Juna into orbit. It's got the parachutes to be able to land on Juna, with a little bit of thruster assistance in the Delta V to get back up. So grabbed everybody nice and easy. The only reason this is up on the station is because I was testing the thing. And I flew it up here, and I've never used it because it uses too much fuel because of how big it is, and I don't need that many people. So here's almost an identical repeat. Sending another rover down. My landing is not as perfect as I would have liked, but here we go. So pretty much the same deal. One rover on the ground, send it away, and then after a little bit of thinking and messing about with the rover, I decided to make it a bit more long term. So what I've actually done with this is I've used the Kerbal planetary base system to extend the rover's capabilities. Kerbal planetary base system is my absolute favourite mod. It works with multiple different life support mods, but personally at the moment I use USI because it integrates well with MKS, but with the amount of changes going in MKS, I'm not a big fan of it at the moment, and I'm looking for a way to get it shot, to be honest. I like the basic stuff, but the way that it changes the hiring system just annoys me. So this, exactly what I'm doing is I've extended it using the planetary base system, but because I was doing this in a rush, I forgot to put a separator on between my fairing plate and, as you can see here, the back of the rover. So they're still technically attached, although you can't see anything. The problem is I also forgot to add any tools onto this from the Kerbal attachment system so that I'd be able to save it. And that's why I've sort of shot it back up there. I was sure that I added tools, but I can't find them. So it's gone sideways. So I decided to give it a shot. And this is the result of trying to land it. And I think that is absolutely beautiful. I managed to get it down with no damage to the rover whatsoever. So next up, we're just launching a little bit, some extra crew. I'm just going to put up into my main space station. I've got some things building up here. I've got one thing specifically building up here. As I said, I'm looking to expand. I'm looking to put bases in places. So I've created a ship that's specifically for that, and I'm adding some extra engineers just to tide that along. Here's our little flashback to our solar harvester for Karborundum. This is a ship that's going around the sun. Now what I'm doing here is I'm starting up the engines, and what I have to do is turn on all of the generators at full whack and then start up the engines, which drain a lot of power when they're starting up. Using capacitors would probably be good for this, but I still haven't mastered them. And then get it and go, and if you can see how long this burn took, I think this was a 20-minute burn or something daft. But there, you can see exactly how hot everything's getting. As I said many episodes ago, this was built as a test. I have not run this properly before. Now I've started to harvest, or I've basically finished harvesting the Karborundum, so this burn was to get me back up to intersect Kerbin again. And as you can see there from how hot everything got, I actually stopped the burn and time warped forward a bit, just to let everything cool down, and started to burn again, and it worried me quite a bit. Now here is our lovely base section. This is why I unlocked the HX parts. At the front we have our DSEV mod, at the back we have the HX parts, and I've got a lot of the MKS stuff, a lot of the base system inside that. Again, I was playing Andromeda and I really like the way that their bases are put together in blocks. So this is actually two base sections on the back of this ship. And the main ship was designed as a big tugboat. It can pull HX parts with their docking nodes, but it can also pull standard parts. And it's just a huge tug. So I'm just putting everything together. Now every time I've tried to build something this size and released it, it has exploded. So, hurrah. This is actually the first time and the first go, no repeats, that I've managed to start something up. And I put a little bit of fuel in it just to get the reactor kicked over, so that I've got the electricity to run reaction wheels and things. And now that everything's built, loaded a crew module with all the extra engineers that it took to build that stuff. I've got nothing else planned for the next while, so just deorbiting some of the staff and bringing them back down to the planet before the hab timers run out. And then lining up the fuel ship. As you can see by the amount of boosters there, this is a heavy ship full of liquid hydrogen. I've got a few more parts opened up now, so I can store. I've got the bigger cryo tanks from Nearties mods. I love Nearties mods as well. So these tanks, this is just basically a couple of big tanks full of liquid hydrogen to replenish what I've got. And this ship has a dual mission. The first mission is to refuel the ship that I've just launched. The second mission is to intercept with our Karborundum harvester as it comes back into the solar system, because our Karborundum harvester does not have enough fuel left with the amount of mass it's carrying in Karborundum to slow down at the planet. And a few extra bits of tech I'm using here. I'm using plasma thrusters, which just run on liquid hydrogen and a lot of electricity, so hence the big solar panels there. And as always, when you're trying to dock two really big craft, it is a royal pain to get things to line up. And there was actually 4 attempts at trying to get this thing docked. And as you can see here, I've actually sacked off the docking program for MechJeb because it was causing too much pain and I had to do it manually to get everything to line up. I did not put enough thrusters on this for the size of the thing. But after we get it all docked and sorted, then we transfer a whole load of fuel. So I'm putting enough in to get this ship out to the moon, to drag this, what it's got, out to the moon. As you can tell, it's got a lot of engines on it from the DSAV mod. And honestly, if you're watching, Angel, please, please, please give us a patch for these so that I can make them bigger, because they're great, but they're too small for most of the crafts I make. But yeah, so we undock this, and then basically what I do is I put it into a very high orbit around Kerbin, going to the very edge of the sphere of influence where our Karborundum harvester is going to be entering, and then I'll try and get a good resonance between them and basically intercept it as it comes back in, so that I can hopefully pass on some fuel to it. At the moment it's got about 2,000 meters a second left, and it needs 3.5, I think, to slow down at Kerbin. That was close to the solar panel, but we're all good. So off it goes on its next mission. It's got a lot of life support on this, and there's only Jebediah on there, so it's just gonna, basically he's just gonna sit there. He's got years worth of life support, so he can sit there, play games, and wait for our good old interception. Now, our next job here, we have more people going up to the Minmus station this time. My plan was to take some people up here and do a bit of a crew rotation swap. And then it went completely sideways because my head has always thought, oh, what if I could get some more science? So I decided, because I'm stupid, to take the heavy lander back, because it can land in an atmosphere. It was designed with that in mind. It can land back on the planet. I've already landed back on Kerbin. So I thought, why not take it to the moon? It's got plenty of Delta V. It should be able to get to the moon, land, and then get back to Kerbin. And I can grab some extra science while I'm doing it. Science is everything. I still haven't unlocked a lot of things, so I thought, why not? So we load up with the people. We managed to get a good orbit going with MechJeb help to get from Minmus and directly intersect the moon. So I don't have to bother with any orbits once I'm there. I'll literally retro burn and land on it. And I thought I'll land quite near the South Pole because it's a biome that I don't think I've taken stuff from the Northern Pole, but I've not taken that much, so I figured ground samples would be okay from here. And then I was talking to somebody and I wasn't watching what I was doing. And as I said, I'd keep some of the accidents in, or all of the accidents in, because they are funny usually, but my god did this annoy me. So I'm trying to stop it from rotating. That's just not happening. There we go. Once we managed to control it, I've turned off the RCS to save as much monopropellant as possible, because I've lost the other tanks. I've realised that one of my biggest problems is how much fuel I've got left, because I don't actually go to the moon a lot, so I don't know how much Delta V is required to take off from the moon and get back to the planet. And the other problem being, slamming into the ground, if you look at the top, I have lost a lot of my parachutes. And strangely enough, I have never actually landed this without the bottom stage. It's got a separate stage, and the reason I put a separate stage on it at the top is specifically for this. So if something goes wrong, I've got that leeway. The reason I ejected the fuel container, which was basically what was left at the bottom stage, was actually because I needed less mass to try and control it. But after some clever use of the reaction wheel, I managed to get it upright again. And I managed to get back into a semblance of an orbit, but not close enough to actually deorbit. I don't get back to the atmosphere. So I take our little tiny ship that we've managed to put into orbit. Good old Valentina is doing a bit of an interception, and she's going to help give us a push back into a decent orbit, and then a bit of monopropellant to deorbit ourselves. Now, people may notice I have inflated 2 of the modules on this ship now, and I discovered the problem was the SSTU mod requires rocket parts. So most things with the USI series of mods use material kits, and yeah, that's one of the things that hasn't been converted over. But yes, so we managed to get this back into the atmosphere, and through all of my praying, it turns out that I massively over parachuted this thing for the top section. But the reason it has all the extra parachutes is because it usually lands with the lander. The parachutes are to slow it down on Juno. But there we go, our lovely slow speed, we managed to recover. So that is us for this time. I shall see you in the next episode.